Hi, my name is Raquel Thomas. I am the Operations Associate here at G4GC. Day one of our reclamation and reciprocity convening was truly incredible. From hearing Dolores Huerta's reflection and call to action, to jam into the set by Girls Make Beats, to joining robust conversations on topics including but certainly not. My name is Philanthropic leadership and language justice. I truly felt immersed in joy. It is an honor to join you here in the digital space and to hold conversations on how to harvest just and liberated futures for girls, femmes, and gender-expansive youth of color. I'd like to invite us all to take a moment to think of our inner child. Daily, you travel through this thing called life, and you still have the audacity to thrive and to dream of a freer future. Take a moment to express gratitude for all that you have done and all that you will continue to do to show up fully, not only for yourself, but also for the members of your global community. I am excited to introduce G4GC's Holding a Sister Initiative Manager, Nahr Suha. Today, Nahr will lead us in an intergenerational panel regarding the importance of affirming trans girls and gender-expansive youth of color.
Thank you, Raquel, for the introduction. Salam and welcome, everybody. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Hello, Mom. It is day 2 of Grantmaker for Girls of Color's Convening, Reclamation, and Reciprocity. We are going to start off with this morning's plenary titled Affirming Futures for Trans Femmes. My name is Nahr Suha. My pronouns are they, them. I also use any and all pronouns with respect. I'm calling in from unceded Duwamish and Coast Salish territories in the Pacific Northwest. I am a Black, Arab, trans feminine, and gender beyond individual who serves as the fund manager of the Holding a Sister initiative at Grantmakers for Girls of Color. Holding a Sister was born in partnership with the Black Trans Fund. The initiative is dedicated to set the foundation for and to build out a future where trans girls, femmes, gender nonconforming, diverse, and expansive youth of color get to exist and thrive. We're gathered here today to hit on some of the initiative's imaginings for trans liberated futures. We will discuss the abundance of language folks use to solidify themselves in their trans identities, the importance of affirming these identities, as well as affirming our need to tap into personal trans joy, or gender euphoria. Finally, we will discuss what a future centering and led by trans girls and women of color could be and could do for this world. This discussion will not be interactive, but I welcome you all to share your hopes and dreams for trans futures in the chat throughout. I am honored to be here with a panel of community members, mentors, and new friends to discuss the importance of pouring into our communities. I'd like our speakers to say a few words about yourselves. Share your pronoun, the identities you hold, where you're calling from, and just how you're feeling coming into the space today. First, we have Monica James here from Triumphant Together. Hello, MJ.
Hi, Nahr. How are you?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. So my name is Monica James. My friends and community call me MJ. My pronouns are she. I am located in Kissimmee, Florida, and bringing me joy today. Life. It's life. Every day is a beautiful day. So yeah, I'm celebrating life, and my color is blue.
Jade Cariaga, representing TransformationsKC. Hi, Jade.
Hello. So my name is Jade Cariaga. I go by she, her pronouns. I am a multiracial Puerto Rican, Filipino, Mexican, and white trans woman of color. I have little doggies in the background. Currently, what brings me joy is these dogs that are in this room. As well as this last week, I've been going through an extremely liberating process of just traveling throughout the US with my really good friend who is running TransformationsKC, which is a trans woman of color led organization based out of Kansas City. So that has been giving me so much joy, and I've been loving every moment of that. And as well as stopping on the road and seeing like a bunch of really cool sights. Yesterday we passed Mount Rushmore. That was fabulous. So yeah, thank you.
Hunter Day Goodridge is with us from Black Trans Fund. Hey, Hunter Day.
Yes, and good morning, Nahr. I'm Hunter Day, or HD, you can call me. You're welcome to also call me by my pronouns they and them. Kin, beloved, friend is fine for me. I am the program manager at the Black Trans Fund. I'm also a doula. I'm also a community support educator. And I am currently on Lenape-Hoking land in the New York, New Jersey region area of the East Coast. And bringing me joy today is celebrating the space of Scorpio highs and Scorpio lows, because we know that we are in Scorpio season, which I celebrate highly in my house with my children. Thanks.
And lastly, we have the esteemed sex and sexuality educator, Erica Hart, with us. Welcome, Erica.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here. My name is Erica Hart. My pronouns are she and they. I'm on the unceded territory of the Lenape peoples, also known as Brooklyn, and the tri-state area as well. I am a Black, queer, non-binary femme. I am a breast cancer survivor and a sexuality educator. I've been teaching sex ed for the past 12 years or so now. What's bringing me joy is a really good friend of mine is actually in labor currently. So I'm super excited to see this human earth side and to celebrate them and to celebrate their family expanding in a whole new way. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you all for being here. Before we dive into discussion, we will screen a short performance inspired by trans joy. I hope y'all are bringing your inner children, ancestors, transcestors, and neighbors to this space, because Onyx Appleberry, guitarist, freelance art handler, and a fellow from G4GC's Future Economy Lab, will now grace us with their music.
Hello, my name is Onyx. I'm a guitarist from the South Side of Chicago. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. And the piece you just heard is called Joy in C Major. It's really just a rendition of the way that I experience joy. Kind of builds up slow, and I'm kind of second guessing if it's real or if what I'm experiencing is valid. I think it's honestly a manifestation for my future self to be more present in the times that make me feel joy, and to let myself feel that regardless of what thoughts might pop up or regardless of what the world wants me to feel. The future that I want this song to live in and the future that I want to live in is one that leaves room for all of the whole Rolodex of emotion, and that affirms all the emotions that we may feel through this whole human experience. Hopefully folks can relate also to the feeling of the song.
Wow. I am so glad we got to have Onyx in this space. Thank you, Onyx. We appreciate and love you and your Rolodex of emotions. Now that we're replenished in Onyx's sounds, let's move into our discussion. There are undoubtedly a multitude of femme genders and other genders fostered within queer and trans communities. Trans youth are under heavy scrutiny right now across the US and the world. However, young people today are showing us just how abundant the language is to hold themselves in their identities. HD, I will first pass the mic to you to discuss the importance of autonomy and self-determination that comes with expansive language, and the importance of affirming the identities of trans youth that trans youth are naming for themselves.
Hey, Nahr, thank you for that offering. And I also kudos to Onyx for that share. I had to take a moment just to like gather myself behind how I wanted to respond to it, because I could absolutely see the way that they moved through that music, and also how they painted it or shared the verbal piece afterwards. I think to respond to your question, I think a lot about the ways that we think about language, and where it comes from, how we receive it, how we learn it, and also how it maybe isn't just words. So even just with Onyx relaying that this is how I feel myself moving through this moment, and sort of sharing that Rolodex of emotions was key. The importance of finding that space to use language or pronouns or names or identities is, I think, a major key for Black and Brown people. I think even more so if you identify as being trans femme, or if you're gender expansive, gender beyond. I think primarily, as I said before, for people that are of color or Black folks, to say that I am is a really solid statement, and to define that for yourself is a way that we give folks, young folks, the space to be. Watching Onyx was another reminder of that like the fluidity of their presence existed without even having to announce themselves necessarily. I think that in terms of the way that we see the world right now and the constant fights that are existing are because a lot of the folks who are, I guess you could say, seemingly adjusted to being in the space have also been adjusted to there being a boundary. I was on a call earlier this week and talking to one of our BTF advisors, and the most beautiful thing was said, that particularly Black trans folks, this is the framing that I'm coming from, but that Black trans folks have the divinity to be able to show up, be full, name themselves in ways that also is beyond their bodies. Right? That there's a way to be able to find and be true to the divinity of ourselves, right? Being comfortable, being supported, being loved on in those identities is important. And I think that these spaces, these conversations, and also this room for young people is paramount right now. Our future needs this room to be able to be, needs to be able to feel supported. And so I'm grateful to this space.
Thank you, HD. I'm really feeling this about how we identify ourselves as beyond our bodies and as just existing, and it says enough without words sometimes. I'm wondering if anyone else has more thoughts.
I was just going to share how revolutionary it is to define yourself beyond your body, considering under white supremacy, that is how we are defined, and how we have been regarded is based on our bodies, how they look, mostly, right? How they're raced, how they're gendered, their ability in terms of disability, in terms of neurotypicalness, neurodivergence, like all of those things are in our current society as how we are defined. So how, how much, gender expansive folks, especially Black gender expansive folks, in particular Black trans femmes, really push beyond being defined by, their bodies. Is just I'm just sitting with that. Like I find that just the simple act of that incredibly revolutionary.
I want to add to that and just say that one of the things that often we talk about just in conversation with our folks at BTF is we ask folks, what are you dreaming of, right? When we start conversations, and even just the space of being able to say, like, to respond to that as a Black person, as a trans person, as a queer person, and then someone actually saying, I see that for you, or I want that for you, right? Like this idea of being not hinged necessarily to what you just said, Erica, about there being confinements a little bit in terms of how we exist in the world. I even thought about the ways that we also access pleasure too, that like if we are sort of tethered to some of the larger norms, that it can be freeing into many cases for us to be able to say, I am, I want, I dream.
And I'll add to that conversation, just as a 50-year-old gender expansive woman of color, living outside my body has always been my only option, because my body has always been denounced. My body has always been chained. My body has always been oppressed, targeted, and abused, because people only saw my body. They didn't feel my soul, my spirit, nor did they hear my voice. And so my only option was to live outside of my body, and where my mind, my soul, and my spirit could travel through the universe, because not every place in the universe was my body accepted. And so today, to see that we have come a long ways. We still have a long ways to go. But today we are able to be free. We are able to connect our dreams to our bodies. We are able to see reflections of our body in this world that once upon a time that was not possible. So for my youth today, enjoy that body. Enjoy and value this time, because this wasn't always our experience as queer, gay, lesbian, questioning, trans, gender expansive. This was not our experience. And so today, the doors, the ways are being paved for our experiences to be more than just our bodies. And that is worth celebrating for me.
I love that you bring up celebration at the end of that, MJ. Young people are really the ones using language radically to pave that way for themselves. And we really need to take their leadership, but also be able to hold them and guide them. Celebration of trans joy and affirming trans lives, I think, should be a daily practice.
Yes.
It should be found in like common household phrases. It should be in community-centered spaces. Yeah. MJ, I would love your opinion on how we affirm trans joy as a practice. What does Oh, well, after that question, how do we affirm trans joy as a practice? I want to know what gender euphoria means to you specifically, and what do you feel that could mean for an entire community?
Okay, can you repeat that for me? Because I think I heard 3 questions, but.
Oh my God, yeah, it was 3 questions.
Okay.
I want to know how we affirm trans joy as a practice. And when I say joy, I'm like, how do we pour into gender euphoria in communities?
So the way to pour into trans joy is to invest. An investment can look like more than just monetary, finance, monies. Investments is time, is affection, is connecting, is safety, making safe space. And I know this term safe space in today's society can be overrated, but there is such a thing as safe spaces. Like, this is a safe space that we're holding right now. And I think that that's how we continue to embrace trans joy. And then in terms of trans euphorium, I think that trans euphorium is being able to wake up every morning walking in my true identity, whether I've had any type of body augmentations, whether I am under any type of gender affirming healthcare, but I am walking in my true authentic self and not walking to survive, but thriving as I walk. I'm able to thrive because I am celebrated, because I am safe. And if I am safe, I am well. And because I am well, I am living in the euphorium of life. And at the end of the day, in the beginning of the morning, the life is beautiful. Life is beautiful. And my people have always found ways to celebrate life, even under the most oppressive times. And that is something that I naturally inherit, is to be able to find joy, even when I am oppressed, even when my life is in danger, I can still find joy. And that is what I see trans euphorium as being. It's like I see me in this world, but I don't have to see myself as a trans. I could just see myself as a being, as an energy, as a light. And that is celebrated. That is okay. I'm not identified, or my acceptance, my success, my safety, and my wellness is not based on my skin, my identity, my voice, my tone, my lack of education. See, none of those things matter when I am experiencing trans euphorium, because that's I'm high. And when we're high, no one can bring us low.
Thank you, MJ. I wonder if that's resonating with anyone else, or if gender euphoria has a different meaning or process for anybody else, and how can the world affirm that?
I'm going to join MJ on that high and talk a little bit about the way that I also my experience, but also how I see other folks in their experience of trans joy, trans euphoria. I think about, for myself, raising 2 children. I didn't say this in my intro, but I'm a parent of twins. And something that I experience joy around is seeing my children feel unbounded. You know, they're Black children growing up in this world. They're 5, turning 6 in a few weeks. And because the people in this room are here, because we are having these conversations, because we show up and claim ourselves being present and are able to sort of like dance in our joy, it means that my children also get to figure out what it means to have their own joy too, right? So my 5-year-old is clear that they're not a boy, that they are, and they say their name, Ori, right? That my other 5-year-old is like, I'm Z and I'm also a unicorn. I can be whatever I want, right? And so knowing that a 5-year-old has access to that level of joy that early is a part of this piece for me around euphoria, because I know for myself at 5, it wasn't that way, that I had to constantly be trying to figure out, like, what does it mean to be in this body? Why does someone calling me a girl or calling me this name not feel so good, right? I didn't understand that I was feeling bounded to something that didn't feel right to me in the moment, because it didn't actually lift me up. It didn't speak me. It didn't, I'm going to say, didn't raise my cheekbones into a smile. It didn't give me tingles in my skin, right? And so when I see and hear folks like MJ, when I'm in this room with y'all naming the fullness of who you are, right? And seeing Onyx too, right? That's euphoric to me. Being with Nahr in New York a few months back, right? And being able to just chit chat about things on a really simple, low, simple, easy level is euphoric, right? Being seen together in the same space and feeling what that warmth is of recognizing each other, right? It's beyond this moment, because it also goes beyond to like our own ancestors, right? I think I heard MJ name that too, that like the folks before us have done a lot of work to get us here. Some of it is because they actually knew this truth, because it was real and available to them before it was shut down. And so we've been fighting to get back to our freedoms, right? We know that, again, I'm going to say that trans folks are divine, right? We've been here through time and will continue to be here. And the way that we continue to light up is testament to the fact that we will remain as bright as we've always been. So that's euphoric to me. And I hear that in all the pieces that you just said, MJ, as well.
Absolutely. I tell you, I am constantly amazed at myself being able to represent joy, to find and tap into joy. And, you know, I don't have to tell you that I struggle. You know, I don't have to tell you that I have some issues going on in the background for you to know that. You can look at me and tell you know that this road has not been easy for me. This journey is not easy for me. And you know that I have witnessed more denial than I have witnessed yeses. But that is the joy for me every day. That's that euphorium piece every day, because every day I believe that, well, it wasn't yesterday, or it all didn't show up yesterday, but today it's a new day. It's a new day. And I'm in charge of this day. See, and that's what I understand. I understand that I got the power. I am the power. And that's what I want young folks to own. Own your power. Never shrink yourself for someone else to increase. Never silence yourself for someone else to feel comfort. Always place yourself first.
All right. Hello, everyone. We had a short tech issue, but we are back. We were talking about gender euphoria and the importance of pouring into gender euphoria. If anyone has some last minute remarks, please feel free to share. I would really love to hear some of your wisdom, Jade, if you feel.
I think for me, gender euphoria is just having a group of sisters around me that I can lean on. Because for trans women of color, most of the times we don't have family that's going to be able to take care of us. So we have to use our chosen family to nurture us and to care for us. So for me, my trans euphoria right now is having a good group of wonderful sisters that just have my back no matter what and can help me develop and can be my family.
Thank you for sharing that.
Mm.
I think what I'm hearing across our answers is that there is a collective power that's generated through affirmation and celebration and joy of ourselves and our peoples. When we imagine futures where trans femmes and folks of color get to exist and take leadership in their communities, what do we see and what are we capable of? I want to hand that back over to you, Jade.
Mm-hmm. So I feel like as trans people of color and BIPOC people, we have a lot that we can teach each other. All of the answers are in the room at all points. There's so much knowledge from all of the older people of color. And I just had the opportunity to attend Liberation Camp hosted by TransformationsKC, where we had a 24 group of BIPOC people throughout the US. And we just got together for 3 days and we had a summer camp, pretty much like an end of summer camp. And this camp was the opportunity for all of us to connect with community and to just talk about liberation and to share our stories and to just connect with community. And it was a really eye-opening experience because we all have different walks of life and everyone lived in different parts of the US, but we all kind of had the same struggles of just wanting to feel community. And that was just a really great experience. It was a really safe space where everyone felt that they were able to share all of their stories. And I think it helped to develop everyone into better leaders. And for us to be able to pass down our leadership to like the next generation, like we need to really be equipped to do that. And I feel like the resiliency, leadership, and wisdom from us as leaders in our communities is what needs to be honed on and given to these young people that don't have support. And so it was a really great experience.
Yeah, that's really amazing. And I love that we're talking about passing down knowledge or just sharing knowledge back and forth to sort of build out our own futures. And I'm really glad you had this experience to let go, be in safe space, and dream. I'm wondering if, I feel like MJ, you and I have had conversations about creating those spaces and what it means to share knowledge and pass it.
Yes, the moment that Jade said that, I was like, oh, wow. Me and Nahr talked about this, in our past conversation. And I'd like to bring that from the past, whereas the connections that we held as community were so much stronger than what they are today. And I like to offer up that whatever that thing whatever those things are that are disconnecting us as community, I like for us to compost that. Because I think that is so very important that the bridge is built amongst our elders, which I like to say are at the fort, and our youth are they're on the forefront. And what you have there is like this arch, and we're crossing back and forth over that. And that is through communication, sharing, exchanging, but most importantly, we're bringing forward things from the past that work and things in the present that does not work. We're composting that. we're composting that. Rich, fertilize the soil with it and try again, grow up again. But I think that something has happened today where we're getting rid of our elders. We're writing our elders off before they are deceased. And if we write our elders off, then that liberation and that freer world that we're aiming to achieve, we're thriving to achieve, we're not going to actually know how to manage that and how to build on that without making some of the mistakes that have already been made. And so if the mistakes have already been made, the dues have already been paid, why pay twice? And that's the power of the elders. That's the power of the elders. And a lot of people have lots of issues with elders because elders don't mince their words. They speak in truth. And, you know, as a Black woman, a Black femme, a Black gender-expansive person, to speak your truth is a threat. And we have to get out of that. Your truth is a threat to me. Your truth hurt me. Your truth is offensive to me. And we have to find ways to say your truth. You spoke that and it resonated something in me. Can we talk about that more? Can you share more? And the elder also has to be humble enough to say, yes, let's talk more about that. And if the elder is found to have offended, that elder has to be humble and say, my darling, my dear, I didn't mean to offend. And that was my best way of getting it out. And let me try again. But the conversations have to continue to be had. And therefore, we cannot have disconnect. Because when we are disconnected, we start being plucked off one by one. We start losing our community members one by one. And what happens is community becomes weaker. Now we can't withstand the attack. Now we can strategize the way forward. And so, yes, I love to see for us to bring back the connections that we shared in my days as a youth. I didn't have to live on the streets as a youth when my family kicked me out and my school kicked me out because I transitioned. I was able to go under the wing of an elder trans woman who said, okay, you got to still live. They kicked you out. It's okay. Everything's going to be all right. So I would love to see that connection rebirthed. And that thing that's disconnecting us, I like to see it compost, and I have some shovels to do some composting in.
I love composting. I love farming. I think you're bringing up a lot of good points about get the shovels. You're bringing a lot of points about community and how we have to work together and, you know, not compost our elders. I'm wondering, Erica, with the shovels, if there is a point as a racial social justice activist and an educator that you get to talk about futures for queer Black folks and queer folks of color, and pass knowledge in the same sort of composting method and community method that MJ has brought up.
Yeah, it's such a good question. There's racial and social justice. I think so many people have unfortunately tapped into that work for capitalistic reasons. And oftentimes when it's rooted in capitalism, there's only one, you can only serve one master, right? So there's only one master that you're serving in terms of trying to just make a profit from it. And it has really delegitimize the work of racial and social justice that is so deeply rooted in Black liberation, right? It has really become this sort of cookie dough sort of formula for racial and social justice, which is really just diversity and inclusion, where if you think about cookie dough, it's very light. It's not necessarily white, but it's very white or light, whatever. And then you just kind of throw in some chocolate chip cookies, and then it's like, okay, or some chocolate chips, and we did racial and social justice, it's done. But really it's just, Black people and non-Black people of color operating on this foundation of white supremacy. We're just now in it, like we're just included. And it is absolutely for white people, right? It is made for the comfort of white people, which is a tenet of white supremacy, that white people have the right to comfort. And I think that that's super important for young people, especially young people of color, to understand. And I wish I understood this as a young person, is that the gaslighting that goes on in terms of our experiences, and how as a young person, I really sat and was like, there's really just something wrong with me, right? Like, I'm not smart, I'm not pretty, I, can never figure this out. I'm never going to be able to do this math problem. I'm never going to be able to figure out English. I'm not going to go to college. My scores. And it was so much messaging around that for me to interpret that simply based on the way that I look. So in the work that I do, it is really carrying forward the Black liberation work that has been present for centuries, right? From slave revolts all the way up to the work of Marsha P. Johnson, to present day work of trans and gender nonconforming activists that are oftentimes even erased in racial and social justice conversations. So it is a presencing of what the future can be as we presence the erasure that has happened around the past. So 100% so present to what's possible. But I do have to say that a lot of times in this work, you're given like an hour and a half to 2 hours to facilitate really large topics. So to imagine the future, right? And to be having these conversations that are beyond a conversation around oppression can be very challenging. So remembering to presence that, Black people do exist in the future, right? And that what does that conversation look like to continue to cultivate that when you have the time constraints of, life, right? And people in quote unquote business or whatever. But yes, I do think that is the work, and that is where racial and social justice should be and continue to be, but that's not how everybody teaches it.
Thank you, Erica.
Yes.
All of that. I wanted to ask HD if they have one more thing to share. As a parent of twins, like you shared earlier, how you feel about learning, passing knowledge, joy, and celebration for their futures and for futures of queer and trans youth of color.
Thank you for asking me that question, Nahr. You know that I get a little bit like, I can go on and on and on. Like, just like Erica said, we can have an hour and a half conversation, or we can have a life conversation. And I'll start a little bit with like, it really sort of starts actually before the kids arrive, before the idea of trying to consider what your family wants to have, right? Because what's the condition of where these kids will be growing, right? And so there are many moments in my parenting journey where I've had to sort of stop, take a beat, reevaluate, reassess my own experiences around gender and also being a Black person, navigating also colorism too in this process as well, right? And so I think about the ways that my children are arriving in spaces. I think about the ways that I also show up in their spaces too, right? So that means in their school environments, that means amongst the families who are the parents of other kids, right? And also when we're just out and about, right? I feel very intensely about it because I think that, part of my own personal life mission is making sure that Black and brown children specifically are able to access whatever they desire, that they are unbound to anything, right? And that even in like the early moments of my children coming earthside, it was very clear that I was like, my child's name is this. Didn't want people to give them a gender or a sex, because I knew right away that the second that someone thought of one of those things, all of the knowledge they've experienced in their history is now ascribed to this being, but they haven't had a chance to speak yet. They haven't had a chance to walk yet. They haven't had a chance to think about how they want to play yet. They haven't figured out even how to be in their body because they're still falling over, because they're just a little mushy pound of body and spirit. And soon it will arrive, and soon it will cultivate into who will be speaking a truth, right? That Monica said before is a gift. And so I try to honor them in that. I try to push them in it as well, right? I ask them to like be curious about things. I ask them to be discerning about things, right? We read a book, and if the book is asserting that a particular animal has characteristics of something that's masculine or feminine, we remove it and let it be an animal because it was just an owl, right? If something is, if something is inanimate and in front of us, like this isn't a guy, this is a cup, right? Like really trying to think about that, because it also fills into the way that we understand boundaries too, right? Again, if I have a Black child growing up in the world and I teach them no before I say yes to them about everything, then everything's a limit to them. Don't do this, don't stand up there doing that, behave a certain way. So now you're conforming them into what they should be ideally, and not allowing them the room to be whole, right? It's important to me to know that, again, as my Black children are arriving in this world, knowing what we know as adversity that I've experienced doesn't exist for them, right? That means that, again, whatever they want to do, they can reach it, they can access it, right? If I could define my actual self, it is someone who is unearthly and unbounded, because I don't see myself as only being in this body, just like Jade said. Often it is that I am a spirit that also is moving to other people that are around me, right? That it comes from also me knowing greater ancestors. It comes from me also knowing being in community with other people, and being able to sample what it feels like to just be. So, our youngest people, as Monica said, on the forefront, right? I would never discount them, even if they are unformed yet, because they also might know something that we don't even know how to comprehend, because they're still investigating and they haven't been tainted by a boundary. So I'll just share those things about how I navigate parenting twins, navigating Black kids, and also being Black trans person myself.
That is amazing.
Yes, it is.
Amazing. As somebody who's trying to get pregnant, that is like affirmation. That is 100% affirmation of what I want to see in the world, for children to be growing up in households that are having these conversations, that are not just having a conversation, but actually creating the environment that is safer, right? Like, what would it have been like if nobody related to us inside of, a colonized gender trope, right? Like how free would we have been if we got to just be, like you said, the blob that we are, right? We got to just fall down and not fall down like a girl or stand up like a boy, right? We just got to exist. And that is just, woo!
Or not be able to cry, right? Or that we expect you to, right?
Right.
Having free range of emotion.
100%. 100%. Or just even the work that I've been doing with my therapist, in full disclosure, how much I have had to hold for people, right? The expectation that I hold everybody's emotional pain and the things that they're dealing with, but nobody is supposed to hold the things that I'm going through, right? I'm just expected to be essentially a receptacle to everything that they're experiencing, which is very much an experience that Black femmes, experience on a regular basis, this mammying of our identity, and how we get to really move away from that as we understand that gender is, constructed and rooted in colonization, right? And but if you grow up in an environment where you don't even have to really be necessarily have that be informed by your identity, what then is the experience? I don't think we really know, because it hasn't happened, since since white settlers came here, right?
I like that as well. What comes up for me hearing HD is trusting their leadership and them trusting their elders to be there for them. And, you know, if I do fall and I can't get back up, they will get me back. And I think that is something that has been missing for Black and brown femmes. And I mean, Black and brown culture, period, is to have someone that believes in our leadership, to have someone that trusts in our leadership, our trust in our wisdom. It is so it's not a norm. And when I see liberation as being that this is a norm. We no longer have to identify our successes at the first femme to accomplish this, the first woman of color to do this, we don't have to be the first because that happened so long ago. You know, today it's running over, and I think I have that and I feel that vision, and I move through that vision by moving through life with the cup half full, the half full cup, and that is very important to keep that. Don't put limitations on children. Don't box children. You may box me as an adult, but don't box children. So thank you, HD and Erica, like you all set a fire.
Thank you, MJ. Jade, I want to just offer up space and grace to you if there are any last words you'd like to add for your hopes and dreams about trans futures, or even for yourself as a trans woman of color.
So I think for me personally, I'm a victim of gun violence, working as a sex worker, and that is what catapulted me into wanting to go into nursing, because I wanted to be a nurse and I wanted to be in the healthcare system where I could uplift other trans women of color that are on their deathbeds, that are going through those experiences. And I think that we need to find out ways as organizers to really help all of the transgender young women of color that are in survival mode. And I think that is something that I really want to focus on myself, because their experiences and their resiliency they need more help. So that's something that I really want to focus on with my organizing coming up. And I think that's something that should be discussed more as well. But we're running out of time, so we can't. I've loved the conversation so far, though, but I really think that this just shows that we could go on forever, like talking about so many different topics, and we didn't even scratch the surface of any of them. So spaces like this, we really need to get together more often and like have a weekend together or camp together or something where we can really share our stories. Because even listening to MJ, like I'm loving her energy, and it's so apparent. And at my camp, it was so apparent, like as a 20-year-old trans woman, the 40-year-old trans woman, the 30, I'm sure MJ is only 32, but, they have so much wisdom to tell us. And unfortunately, they're not alive. A lot of them aren't alive to tell us, right? So we really need to find ways of telling our stories, and so that we can help the futures of the young trans women of color and the young BIPOC women of color. And I'm sorry about my dogs again, everyone.
We love them.
Thank you.
I had something to say as well.
They did.
Well, I appreciate you all for bringing your spirits and your voices into this space today, and to scratch the surface of a conversation that is ongoing and will continue to be so. Thank you, everybody who has tuned in today and who has put energy into the importance of world building for trans femmes and trans folks. If you would like to learn more about the Holding a Sister initiative, there will be a Kiki Circle later today at 4:30 p.m. Eastern to do just that. Up next is a short break with a super dope set by Girls Make Beats. All is love.